According to their lawyers, Ruby Franke, an infamous parent blogger and YouTube impressive, is expected to make a defense agreement in the child abuse case. Ms. Franke faces 6 heavy child abuse after being arrested in Utah on August 30 with former business partner Jodi Hildebrandt. The police found the children of Mrs. Franke, who had open wounds after she escaped from Mrs. Hildebrandt's house, in a similarly feted state residence. Ms. Franke said that she has been kept without bail since her arrest and hoped to özgü quickly solve the issue by making a defense agreement on Monday, December 18. The statement put forward by Winward Law. Mrs. Franke was a loyal mother and determined to heal continuously. Ruby Franke and business partner Jodi Hildebrandt Ms. Franke and Mrs. Hildebrandt published a popular YouTube parent advice channel. But after the name of Mrs. Hildebrandt's neighbor 911, she attracted the attention of law enforcement officers. Neighbor, Ms. Franke's 12-year-old son, ankles wrists of the ankles and wrists to begging for food water. The parcel band came to door. This child is obviously detained. The police then called Ms. Franke's house and found a 10-year-old girl who was allegedly malnutated and suffered from wounds. Salt Lake Tribune. Mrs. Franke and Mrs. Hildebrandt had to appear in court for a hearing on September 18. But the lawyers were postponed after the 5th of October because they wanted a delay to be reviewed from the discovery. In a statement explaining that his clients were looking for a defense agreement, lawyers claimed that Mrs. Franke was manipulated by the former business partner who benefited from the search for self-development and was twisted into something disgusting. YouTuber Ruby Franke is accused of 6 points of child abuse for a long time. Mrs. Hildebrandt systematically isolated Ruby Franke from his wide family, older children and husband Kevin Franke. This long-term insulation has led to a distorted sense of morality shaped by Mrs. Franke's influence. Of Mrs. Hildebrandt, he said, Mr. Franke. His lawyer Randy Kester said that in October, Today had left Franke's at the Ruby's directive for 13 months. Ms. Franke's statement of his lawyers is that he was ruined by the divorce, but accepts and understands his anger and reasoning. Despite pain, he respects his decisions and he can contribute to the reconstruction of trust and encourage understanding of their families over time.